Whiskey. I love whiskey. The fine craftsmanship, the amazing flavor like no other, the aroma, just sniffing a good whiskey makes me feel things, man. I'm never drinking again. No, if someone offers me a glass, I'll drink it. But me alone in a bottle, I realize that's not a good combination. I used to drink whiskey every single day, and I realized I was getting addicted when I was trying to cut down on it, and just how difficult that was. This was back in late 2017, early 2018. I thought, you know, I enjoy drinking, nothing wrong with that. But it was also a time where I was starting to care more about my health. I had started working out for the first time in my life, and I thought, you know, if I want to live a healthy life, I should probably cut down a little bit. And for any sane person, that's very easy to do. For someone that was really getting into it, that was very difficult to do. And that's when I realized, oh shit, maybe I have a problem. And that's why I quit drinking for a few months, because I thought, you know, I need to show that I'm the one in control. I had just read a book on Buddhism as well, which talks all about self-control. So I wanted to prove that I could quit drinking, even though I was clearly getting really into it. And that felt really good to me. I felt really empowered because I'd shown that I could do that. In retrospect, you know, what was the point? But what happened was, I think a lot of you can probably relate to this. When you want to do something that you know isn't good for you, you sort of reason with yourself in your head. You know, it's like, I can eat all this crap now, just work out later. It's that kind of logic. And what my brain said to me was like, you know, Felix, pat yourself on the back. You quit drinking before. You've shown that you're in control. You know, obviously everyone drinks. This is not a problem for you. You can just drink whiskey again. So I do. And I think this time was when it was the worst for me, because in retrospect, I realized I was dealing with a lot of anxiety at the time. Well, I did know it. You know, drinking to sort of escape emotions is a recipe for disaster. This was during the time of all my controversies. I was dealing with a lot of stress, probably the most I've ever been through. I knew how to deal with that, but there was also so much going on, even behind the scenes, that no one even knows about. And during all of it, I had trained my brain into thinking something's bad is coming. You know, it seemed inevitable. I'm at this space where everything is fine right now, but everything can go to shit really fast, and I had seen that happen. So it wasn't completely irrational, even though my emotion probably I felt irrational about it. And I was like, why do I have so much anxiety? Like, I remember asking friends about it, and I was like, dude, I feel so like anxious about these things. I know it's completely irrational, but I just can't shake it, you know? And they said, like, you know, it's actually not that irrational at all. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. If I really wanted to further analyze how I felt at the time, I think I was still not just addicted to escaping these emotions by drinking, but also I think I was addicted to YouTube. And I was so scared of losing YouTube through all these controversies that I was fueling one addiction because out of my fear of losing another one. So yeah, a lot of controversies, a lot of stress, and at this time, imagining a life without drinking just seemed really bleak to me. I thought, you know, everyone does it. It's never gotten bad or out of control. Usually when you talk about, you know, drinking and addiction, it's usually, you know, someone losing their job or losing their loved ones or their whole life getting ruined by it. But I was nowhere even near that. So I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to co-opt all that pain that people have, you know. But I do also recognize it for what it was. And, you know, also, it's almost that romanticizes idea of a guy with a heavy head or heavy heart looking over at a bar with a glass. You know, it's almost seen as a cool thing. So all these things sort of play into your mind, and you justify to yourself why it's okay. But at the time, to me, it had gotten to a point where it just felt pathetic. I wanted to stop because I hated being in this anxiety of in between. And when I stopped drinking this time, it was really rough, especially because I was having withdrawals from it. It took me a long time to be able to sleep properly again, but I did manage it, and I was done. and I haven't touched it since, which I'm really proud about. But I never really talked about how I quit and, you know, that whole process. Like, I've only really spoken about these things because people asked me, but in reality, I never talked about it because I was really embarrassed about it. And even now, just saying it, I'm kind of like... And the main reason I was embarrassed was because I hadn't quit drinking, but I hadn't quit my addiction. I was still addicted, just to something else. I was addicted to nicotine patches now instead. I had replaced my drinking habit with nicotine pouches. So fucking stupid. A lot of people notice it in videos, like I had this patch here. A lot of people use it to quit smoking. It's basically, yeah, strong nicotine. Whenever you have that feeling of craving or addiction, it sort of gnaws on you, and it really helps to have something to replace it with. The problem was, yes, I replaced it with something else that is way less bad for you, obviously, but it still didn't feel like I had beaten addiction, like I had just replaced it, which I felt really embarrassed about, and that's why I always try to hide it. And I also didn't want to be a bad influence, and there was other reasons, but I'll get into that. And I went through the same thing with nicotine, where I quit it twice. Quitting it was really hard because I had to come in terms with that I would have nothing. When you get that itch of wanting to consume something, or your addiction, I knew the only way for me to deal with it and to finally be rid of it was to just have nothing. So when you get those addiction dips and you're feeling bad, you consume whatever it is you want, and oh, I feel good again. I realized I would have none of that. And that kind of felt like almost losing a friend. I'm not even exaggerating. It's like something that you used to rely on will no longer be there. But I had decided, you know, I was beyond fed up, and I just had to deal with it. And I knew that if I could literally just deal with it for a couple of days, I would be over it. And that was the case. That was really tough withdrawals, but it was fine. It was not a big deal. As someone who's been studying philosophy on my own, Stoicism in particular allows for vices like drinking. It's described as letting your spirit loose, kind of. And I use that as my voice of reason. Like, yes, it's fine for Stoics to drink, but they obviously draw a distinction between using it and being controlled by it. And that's a fine line to walk for some people, myself especially. I was drinking because I was stressed out, and it wasn't until I dealt with those emotions that I was able to not rely on these things anymore. The problem is when you develop these habits to cope with your problems, is that when you no longer have these issues, you still have to deal with the addiction. Like, that doesn't just go away on its own. And I think Buddhism had it right all along. It's just I didn't do it correctly, where they say that craving something is suffering, and you will always suffer unless you uproot your cravings. And I needed to finally uproot those cravings, and I did, and that worked. I don't feel anything about alcohol or nicotine at this point because they're completely cut out of my life. Which is very liberating. It's very freeing. I think I could have gone through my whole life with keep consuming alcohol and nicotine, and a lot of people do. I think that I could have done that just fine. But I've been obsessed with this idea of freedom, the Stoic idea of freedom, of not being bound to anything and let my actions be my own. And that's what really motivated me to wanting to free myself. You can, you know, be bound to your passions, the things that you enjoy. And I think it's hard to recognize when you are, you know, because I realize in retrospect, yeah, I've been addicted to YouTube for almost 10 years. And that's led me to put way more value into it than what it really is. And it feels liberating to me to even acknowledge that and let go of that. And I didn't plan to make this video, and I didn't really want to talk about it, not just because I was a bit embarrassed. I'm not anymore, but it feels weird talking about it. But also because I wanted to overcome these things on my own. I wanted the virtue of overcoming to exist purely just for me. But I'm hoping that talking about these things might lead people to open their eyes about their own actions and what they're also doing. And it's a tough thing to admit. Going through this experience, I am so humbled to people that deal with other forms of addiction, because I didn't see it that way before. People that maybe deal with being overweight or I don't know, whatever, drug addictions or whatever it could be. You know, obviously it's not the same, but I understand the mentality, which I didn't have an empathy for the same way, because I never questioned myself doing it, because it's never been a problem on the outside. There's a Marcus Aurelius quote that goes, think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life, now take what's left and live it properly. And I see this as a guide of live life as you've already made all your mistakes. It's the same as Nietzsche's life-affirming principle. And I can finally say I would kiss the demon on his cheeks. Before I wanted to escape my mind, but now I feel like I want to sharpen it. And that feels incredibly liberating. So, you know what? That's it.